Welcome, Whiskey Theologians. This is Round the Word in Many Glasses. Today we'll be drinking Wild Turkey 101. We'll be talking about the story of Joseph. So sit back, relax, pour yourself a drink, and let's get into it. So today we have Wild Turkey 101, and it is another one of these in a sample size bottle. It's a bigger sample size than the one I had last time when I had Jameson on. There's a reason for that. It's not because I hadn't had Wild Turkey in a while. In fact, I had a bottle not too long ago. I certainly remember what it's like, and it's not like I was particularly looking to try another Wild Turkey product. Although I will say it's called the Rare Bird or Rare Breed. I can never remember which one it is. It's the fancier version. That's definitely one of those wish list whiskeys for me. I've heard great things about it, and it's one I definitely do want to try. But unlike the Jameson Caskmates, I'm not questioning whether or not I want to try it. I know I do. It's a price point issue, and there are other things that I also would like to try for cheaper, and so it gets pushed down the road. But I do have a sample bottle, and a bigger sample bottle than I had last time. The reason for that is this. I quite like Wild Turkey 101, and it is a bourbon, and as a bourbon, it's about as middle of the road as I think you can get. And so, not too long ago, I was trying to get, well, specifically my sister-in-law into whiskey with me, so that we can have a shared hobby. And so I bought this so that we could share it. That way it was a sample bottle, easier to afford, all that good stuff. But I did just open it now. So what happened? Well, had her try a few things, a little less middle of the road bourbon. In fact, I think the bourbon we started with was the High Rye bourbon from Redemption, which I have reviewed on this channel. It's a great bourbon. Not a rye, it's a bourbon with a lot of rye in it, of course. And although I intended to use this for that tasting, if you will, she had decided that she preferred Irish to bourbons, and so I just never brought it out. Figured, let's not go this direction, let's go a different direction. And so she had like the one other Irish that I had on hand. And so I have a little sample bottle of Wild Turkey 101. If you've never had it and you're curious about whether or not you would like and enjoy bourbon, it's definitely not a bad one to start with. It's a fairly easy drinker. It's not going to punch you like the Cooper's Craft that I've had on a lot of bourbons really can. But it's not trying to. What Wild Turkey, well, I don't know if they were going for this or not, but what they've accomplished is kind of right at the origin of what bourbons can be. Dead center. Kind of right in the middle. It kind of tastes like everything, and so I kind of taste like nothing, I suppose, but got a little bit of all these bourbon elements. When I taste it, what I really get is a lot of that caramel, which comes from the wood, finishes off with some spice, and you do get the heat from the proof. It is 101, so it's over 50% alcohol. Barely, but it is over 50%. So it's got a little bit of a punch, and in the world of bourbon, it's not that strong, because there are some really punchy proofs out there. But again, good middle-of-the-road sort of whiskey. And so if you're trying to get into bourbon, pick it up, taste it, see what you like in it, and see what you don't like in it, and then you can kind of go find other things that take you in those various directions. So it's good as kind of that starting point where you can branch out from there, depending on what you like. So yeah, Wild Turkey 101's and fairly easy drinker, I think, at least. Although I didn't like it the first time I tried it, which was years and years and years ago. But definitely one to try. And so if you've never had it, go try yourself Wild Turkey. And you can get yourself a little bottle like this, and it's not that expensive for you to go and experiment with something. So, our subject for today in the Around the Word in a Year is the story of Joseph. It's a very familiar story. In fact, I've kind of struggled a little bit with what exactly I was going to do with this video because it's such a familiar story to me, and it's not that we haven't done really familiar stories, but I don't know if I've really done a whole lot with Joseph apart from like Sunday school kind of stuff. Um, and so it's hard for me to kind of get out of that children's lesson sort of field. A lot of really great lessons in there. Don't get me wrong; it's a great text. It's a great story to use for Sunday school. You get for excuse me, you get forgiveness. You get God's mercy coming through, repentance, God guiding and directing, even through difficult and hard times. There's a lot of really, really good stuff, especially for kids, that we can teach from the story of Joseph. But it's just, I don't know. It was, as I was going through, it's kind of hard for me to kind of go beyond that. Now, there's another caveat in there, because it actually would be fairly simple for me to really go into a deep dive on the Christology of the tale of Joseph, if you will, because Christ shows up typologically a lot, and all over the place with Joseph. You'll notice the number 3 comes up a number of times, especially with people being released from prisons where Joseph releases his brothers. Judah is the one who speaks up and gives his life as ransom for others. There's a lot of really awesome Christological connections, of which I've just barely scratched the surface with the story of Joseph. But I don't want to go into those today in this video for 2 reasons. One, it would be a really long video. It would take quite a long time, which is, I have no problem making long videos. Quite frankly, just didn't feel like doing that today. But 2, the main reason is someone has done a really good job of this already. At least I think there's an individual on YouTube who has done a spectacular job of this. And so if you don't know of the, I guess, YouTuber, if you will, I think that's the term, Pastor Chris Rosebrough. He's, I think, up in one of the Dakotas. He is a Lutheran pastor. He hosts a radio show and now YouTube channel called Fighting for the Faith, or Pirate Christian Radio. And in general, what he does is he deals with what he terms pop American Christianity, kind of the Joel Osteen sort of craziness that's going on in the world of Christianity. And he looks at what those groups of individuals are saying and compares what they're saying to what God says in his word, and to see, let's see, what's his catchphrase? Comparing what they say in the name of God to what God says in God's word. I got the first half of the catchphrase right. The second half, I think, fell apart. But if you haven't checked it out, great channel. But he has a series which I wish he would do more of, because they're all absolutely amazing. I can unequivocally, with no reservations, recommend his A Pirate Christian's Guide to the Old Testament. He does deep dives on the Christology of particular texts. Now, usually, when he has done this in the past, it's because he's talking about a preacher who has messed up the text, who has really just screwed it up, completely missed the point. Made the text about themselves rather than Jesus. But one of the first ones he does, I think it might be the first, it could be the second, I don't know, it's in there, is on the story of Joseph. He essentially reads through just about the whole thing and really takes apart exactly how every element just about of Joseph's story points to Christ, mostly typologically, but in other ways as well. And he just does a really, really good job of it. And so instead of rehashing that in, quite frankly, a more inferior way than he does, I'm just going to recommend that you go and check his video out. And in fact, I'll leave a link to the video down in the description of this one, so you can go straight to it. Now, because I'm recommending something, I will say the Pirate Christian's Guide to the Old Testament, I can, without reservation, recommend every single one of those videos. They're great, at least all the ones he's done at the time of this release. Um, I recommend all of his videos. I think most of the stuff he does is really good. I have some personal qualms about some of the way he approaches certain things. The content's good, the delivery and the vehicle, some of it comes through. I find myself a little frustrated. I wish he would have handled certain things, or he would handle certain things differently. I can still recommend it. It's still very good. He's not teaching anything wrong. Again, the content is spot on, dead on. I have personal problems with some of his delivery. If you're curious about that, I hope you know me personally because you can ask me personally what it is. He's a good source. I don't want to disparage him on YouTube, and so especially because I haven't spoken with him about these qualms that I have, and so I'm not going to tell you what irritates me about some of his content, but I can still recommend it. Still really, really good stuff. Go check out his channel. Check out particularly his video on Joseph. Really well done. But what I want to do, because I do want to add some content other than me just rambling about Wild Turkey 101, is I want to talk about one way that we can read and study the Bible. Shouldn't be the first way we approach it, but might help us to gain greater insight into the text, help bring us more deeply into the readings. And I don't know if it has a technical name, but I think it works really well with Joseph, with the story of Joseph. And what that is kind of put yourself into the shoes of the individuals in the text, everyone, right? Not just Joseph, and realize that does not, at no point is this a one-to-one correlation between what's happening to Joseph and what's happening to you. It's not the goal. But put yourself into Joseph's shoes while he's in prison for all of those years. And try and feel what he's feeling. Try and think about what he might be thinking about. Try and walk a mile in his moccasins, if you will. Another great YouTube pastor, I guess I'm just recommending everyone. I don't know if I've recommended him before, but Brian Wolfmueller, he's also on YouTube. You just search his name. He's a pastor out in Texas. He has apparently taught, when he teaches students preaching, he has said you need to be able to smell the text. And this is essentially what he's saying is put yourself into the text so that it's so real to you that you can smell the things that the characters, that the individuals are smelling. So, for instance, what do you think that prison that Joseph was languishing in smelled like? What did it smell like in the pit his brothers threw him in? What was he experiencing, thinking as he was traveling to be sold as a slave? What do you imagine the excitement that Joseph had right after the baker and the cupbearer, in particular the cupbearer, are released from prison, thinking, I'm about to get out, and then the utter despair when they've forgotten you. Put yourself in the text. What was Jacob thinking all these years? How did the death, or the assumed death, at least as far as Jacob knew, of Joseph, how does that affect his relationship with his children as they grow up? Try and put yourself into the text. This isn't the first thing you do, right? Read the text. First thing you should always do is try and really ask yourself the question, how is this about Jesus? Once you've done that, keep going, right? The scriptures are deep. Put yourself into the shoes of the characters, not assuming that you are them or that what happened to them will happen to you. That's not the point. You're missing the point if you do that. Try and really live the story and see if that gives you any extra insights, if that gives you another place to dive in or to think about, to consider, see what that might speak to you and tell you about Christ. And so I'll leave you with that story of Joseph. It's an excellent one. great Christology. Again, go check out a pirate's guide or a pirate Christian's guide to the Old Testament. Again, link will be down in the description. And maybe come back, let me know what you think of that video. But until then, all you who wait on the Lord, raise a glass. Let us drink to Christ's imminent return.